The story begins with a man named Gary who drives a tow truck. He arrives at Maddie Barker's house to take her car. Maddie and Gary used to date, but then Maddie stopped talking to him. Maddie tries to use their old relationship to stop Gary from taking her car, but a man she was with the night before ruins her plan. He comes outside in his underwear and touches Maddie. Gary doesn't listen to Maddie and takes the car. Maddie works as an Uber driver, so she needs her car. She follows Gary on her rollerblades and tries to buy him breakfast to stop him. She even tries to get her car off the tow truck and drive away, but she can't because the car is still connected to the truck. Maddie ends up in trouble and gets put on probation. Things get worse for Maddie when she finds out she owes a lot of money in taxes. She could lose her house because of this. Maddie also works as a bartender at a place in Montauk, where she has lived her whole life. She works with her friend Sarah and spends time with her and her husband, Jim. Maddie's boss notices her bad attitude when she fights with a customer who tries to order a drink too early. During a break, Sarah shows Maddie a job ad. A rich family is looking for a woman to date their son before he goes to college. They are offering a car as payment. Maddie realizes that date means more than just going out. It also includes being intimate. But she decides to do it because she doesn't have any other options and she wants to take advantage of the rich family. She thinks they are the reason she might lose her house. Maddie meets the Sims parents, Laird and Allison Becker. They talk about their son Percy, who is going to start college at Princeton in the fall. Percy is very shy, doesn't have many friends, and likes to play video games in his room. Despite the age difference, Maddie is 32 and Percy is 19. Maddie convinces the Beckers that she is the right woman for Percy, but they tell her that Percy can't know about their deal. Maddie meets Percy at the dog shelter where he works. She wears a tight dress and pretends to want to adopt a dog to get his attention. Percy shows her a dog named Milo, who used to be a police dog but got addicted to cocaine. Maddie's behavior starts to make Percy nervous, and he tries to leave early, but Maddie offers him a ride home in a van she borrowed from Jim. When Maddie takes Percy to her house, he gets scared and sprays her in the face with mace. Maddie, in pain, tries to tell him that she just thinks he's attractive. Percy expresses his wish to Maddie for a proper date, to which she agrees. After their encounter, Maddie returns the borrowed van to her friends Jim and Sarah and shares her opinion that Percy is not attractive. Maddie then takes Percy to a bar where she knows one of the waitresses. She orders a Long Island iced tea for him, which he does not like. During this time, a man named Travis, who was Maddie's ex-boyfriend, shows up. He flaunts his wedding ring and thanks Maddie for leaving him, saying it was the best thing that ever happened to him. He also warns Percy not to get too attached to Maddie. Later, Maddie convinces Percy to go skinny dipping at the beach with her. When they are in the water, 3 drunk teenagers steal their clothes, which have their wallets, phones, and keys. Maddie, without any clothes on, fights the teenagers until they return their belongings. After returning to the water, Percy tells Maddie that he thinks something is wrong with her. Maddie decides to leave and drive away, but Percy, still naked, demands his phone back. When Maddie refuses, Percy jumps onto the hood of her car. Maddie drives with Percy clinging onto the hood, and they are spotted by the police. Fearing that she will lose her license if caught, Maddie manages to escape by driving over train tracks just before a train comes. Back at her place, Maddie tries to seduce Percy again. She dances for him and asks him to do the same. During this, she notices a rash on Percy's back, which he says is due to anxiety. Maddie applies lotion on his back, and they start to share personal stories. Percy talks about how his classmates made fun of him, and Maddie shares an embarrassing memory. Percy asks Maddie to spend a day with him, and she agrees. They go to an arcade and win some prizes, but they get kicked out when Maddie messes with a kid. They then visit a lighthouse where Percy asks Maddie for a kiss. He's a little awkward, but she lets him. Maddie also tells him that she's never left Montauk and still lives in her mother's house, which her father left them along with some money to keep them away from his new family. Next, they visit Percy's former nanny, a man named Jody. Jody is suspicious of Maddie, but she dismisses his concerns. pointing out it's odd for a man to be a nanny to a teenage boy. A former classmate of Maddie's, Doug Kahn, who is now a realtor, comes to Maddie's house with an offer to sell her house for a good price. Maddie refuses, determined to save her house. Later, Maddie takes Percy to a plush restaurant as part of a mock prom date, as neither of them attended their actual proms. She encourages Percy to play the piano when he mentions that he can play. Percy plays the song Man-Eater to the delight of everyone at the restaurant, including Maddie. A girl from Percy's school, Natalie, also praises him and reveals she will be attending Princeton in the fall, like Percy. Natalie invites Percy to a party for future Princeton students. Maddie tries to dissuade Percy from attending, fearing he might end up being intimate with Natalie or another girl. Despite her objections, Percy insists on going. They arrive at the party in a limo, and Maddie searches for Percy among the crowd of teens, who look down on her for her age. She eventually finds Percy in bed with Natalie, but he is unwell from drinking alcohol and taking an ibuprofen. Maddie helps him vomit, but the party host's parents ask her to leave. Percy tries to defend Maddie, accidentally punching her in the throat in the process. After leaving the party, Percy, still drunk, confesses his love for Maddie and expresses his readiness to be intimate with her in the limo. Maddie realizes he is too drunk and decides not to proceed. Percy's parents, Laird and Allison, notice that Percy is happier and more outgoing, which he attributes to his new relationship with Maddie. However, Percy tells them he has decided not to go to Princeton because he wants to stay close to Maddie. Percy invites Maddie for lunch at his house to meet his parents. He starts to drink their wine and behaves in a moody way. Later, he and his co-worker, Crispin, take the Buick into the woods and crash it into a tree. When Percy returns home, he and Maddie decide to be intimate and get it over with. However, Percy is unable to control himself and ends the act prematurely. He confesses that he knows everything and breaks up with Maddie, telling her she will end up living in Montauk forever. Later, Gary delivers the damaged Buick to Maddie because it's registered in her name. Maddie continues her Uber job in the damaged car, while Percy locks himself in his room and immerses himself in video games, ignoring Maddie's texts and calls. When Maddie finally manages to raise enough money to repair her car and pay her taxes, she celebrates with Jim and Sarah. However, they tell her they're moving to Florida because Sarah is pregnant, leaving Maddie feeling alone. Maddie eventually decides to sell her house to Doug and accepts his offer. She sells it to Jim and Sarah so they can stay and raise their baby. Maddie plans to move to California. Maddie learns that Percy is at a Princeton mixer and goes to find him. Percy still refuses to talk to her, even when she tries to explain herself. She jumps onto the hood of his car, mirroring his previous action, and he drives away, with Maddie clinging to the car. They end up driving through a beach, where Maddie catches fire from a barbecue grill before Percy drives into the water. They both panic, search for each other, and finally apologize. After they make up, Maddie tells Percy that she's moving to California, and Percy is happy for her. He also tells her that he still considers her as his first, even though their intimacy was short-lived. Percy packs his bags and says goodbye to his parents, Laird and Allison, on the day he is to leave for Princeton. Maddie surprises him by showing up to drive him to Princeton before she leaves for California. She gives him another surprise by revealing that she has adopted Milo, the dog from the shelter.